Hey guys, if you like my videos, I would love if you click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications from all my new videos. Okay, so you guys just heard a preview of the sound that we're going to make, and I've made that sound in Serum. If you want to know how I made this chord progression, then you can check out the previous video I've done. There should be a link on screen right now, like somewhere around here. Okay, cool, so it's in Serum. I'm just gonna take some of the effects off. So the sound coming out of Serum sounds like this. So really the effects we got are a bit of reverb and a bit of saturation and a bit of EQ. Right, I'm going to duplicate this and then mute the original sound, and it's not going to be exactly the same because obviously one tiny thing changes and the sound can sound a little bit different, but I'm going to initialize the preset by clicking menu and then init preset. So the chords just with the standard Serum preset sound like this. Actually hurts my ears. I'm going to turn that down. Right, so the first thing we want to do is we've got the saw wave up here now. I'm going to increase that to at least 7, maybe 9. Sounds cool. Play around with the blend. I think I had it more so just one of the voices was sticking up a little bit. Then we want to switch on oscillator B, and we're going to crank the unison all the way to 15 or 16, something like that. It sounds like this. So it's just a bit fuller. You can see we're clipping here at the moment. I'm just going to lower it down. So this wave is on 0 octave, that one's on +1. So all the notes are going to play 1 octave higher for just this wave table. So that's broadening up the sound a little bit. Next, what we need to do is go over to here, and I'm going to use a sub oscillator, and I'm going to choose Surf in this case, and then drop the octave down and lower it a little bit so it sounds like this. Just adds a little bit of bottom end to it. Also going to add noise. Ooh, I'll mute that clap. So that's just a little bit of noise. I'll turn the bit. That'll do. Okay, so we've got these waves. I'm actually going to detune this ever so slightly. Put the blend. I'll leave the blend about where it is. So that sounds kind of cool at the moment. Depending on how many notes you're playing in your chords, you may want to bump the polyphony up a little bit down here. But as you can see by the number of voices, don't really need to do that, so I can save a little bit of CPU. Because the more voices you have, the more CPU you use, so polyphony, keep it as low as you physically can for what you're doing. Next we need to add a bit of release. A release is a little bit like reverb, so where if I crank it up all the way, I can just show you what it does. So release is the time until the note kind of stops playing after you release it. You want to put that probably around 700 milliseconds. So then each note kind of leads into each other. It's kind of what you want. And to add the little kind of stabby elements into the chords, keep the decay as it is. Actually, we can play with it in a little bit. And you want to just reduce the sustain a tad. Let's try this. If I go down all the way, you'll see the difference. And I'll reduce the decay as well. See, it's like makes a big difference. So just leave that around there. Sustain, something like that. Sounds quite cool. Next, what we want to do is add a filter so we can automate that. In fact, you know what? I'm going to add the effects first. So go into the effects tab. I want to add a little bit of hyper. Not that much. Reduce the mix down a little bit. Reduce the detune. The rate pretty much stays as it is. And dimension. This is kind of a way of like widening the sound a little bit. So I'm just going to turn this up. You don't want to overdo it though, because if you listen, you can get some really weird high-end stuff going on. And keep it subtle. Lots of little subtle things. Just add a little bit of distortion. You can do that like outside or inside Serum. It just depends what plugins you've got and that kind of thing. I'm going to go for soft clip. Leave the filtering off. Just play around with the drive. So that sounds like shit, but if we put the drive at like 20% and then reduce the mix, it might sound a little bit better. I can hear some weird stuff going on in hyper, so I'm going to lower that down. Cool. Next what we want to do is add chorus. And you can switch the order of these effects just by doing this in Serum. So play around with it, bit of trial and error, find out what you think sounds best. So turn up a little bit of feedback. With chorus you need to be quite subtle with it, because otherwise it can sound awful. If I show you the worst, it just kind of phases out the sound, it loses all its power. Just play around with it as you go. Compression. Some people like to use OTT. I personally, I'm not a fan of it, but I'm going to use it very subtly because I think some people overdo it. If you click multiband, that basically turns Serum's compressor into an OTT, which sounds very over the top. Because that's like, when it's on 100%, it sounds like dog shit, so you need to lower it down. Experiment with it, but personally, I'm just going to switch it off because I just don't like the way it sounds, but go ahead and try it out for yourself. EQ, I want to reduce a little bit of the low end because I'd rather have a sub bass underneath. So I'm just gonna, whoops, wrong thing. Take out some of the lows around 80 odd hertz, reduce the EQ. And I'm gonna bump this up a tad, but only the higher frequencies, so like at least 1500 onwards, but not that extreme, and by not a crazy amount of dB. So before and after. Before, this is just bringing out the highs really. Possibly a little bit too much, so I'll lower it. Okay, so that's the sound. Now we need to add the filter, so that way we can make those kind of transitional like chord progressions. So let's just add everything. So it's all these sounds are going into that filter. I'm going to choose MG low, so this is like a low pass filter. So you get those like festival vibes just from that. Lower the cutoff completely. Go into envelope 2. Assign it to the cutoff. So that sounds a little bit crap at the moment. If we lower the sustain, play around with the decay. See, that sounds pretty cool. Can we play with the release? Release doesn't make too much difference in this sound. Now I want to use the drive and the fat. So we've pretty much got that sound now. I'm just going to put up the resonance a little, so not so much that it sounds like squeaky, but enough that we can play around with it in the automation as well. So that's the sound. Now what we need to do is add some effects. You can use the reverb in Serum, but I personally prefer Valhalla's reverb. The preset that I like to use, it's under plates and then bright plate, and then you've got to play around with the decay time and the mix and pre-delay. So that sounds very nice. Let's turn it up all the way so we can play around. Around about just over 3 seconds will sound good. Just a little reverb tip for you guys. For leads and like things that you want in the front of the mix, you can use plates. And for stuff that you want in the background, things like Hall presets would be a good thing to use. And definitely use presets for reverbs, because there's just no point you tweaking everything, because nobody cares, you know. Right, so this is what it sounds like. Sounds pretty cool. Then what we're going to do is add a Saturator effect from Ableton. Any kind of Saturator will work. I just happen to use a preset, where is it to? Here, called Warm Up Highs. I'll just replace it so you can hear, and then I just reduce the dry, oh sorry, reduce the wet a little bit. You can choose it. You can choose to add it before or after the reverb, and then just see what sounds better to you. I think it sounds better before the reverb. And just add a little EQ to get rid of some of the low end. Like I said, we're going to add a sub bass if we actually carry on with this track. So that's what we do there. Just add a bit of EQ, get rid of some of the lows. Could even cut it completely, but for the purpose of this tutorial, so it sounds nice for this, I'm just going to leave it like that. You want to take out the really crispy stuff at the high end, because you'd probably have a lead on top here, which would take up a little bit more of that, and like hats and things, and white noise and sweepers and everything. I'm just going to turn up the volume because my headphones are a little bit low, so. Now we want to play with the reverb. So not the reverb, we want to play with the automation. So this is what the automation I had in place, and it was just automating the cutoff and the resonance. So let's see what it does by watching in here. Yeah, so that's how we've made that sound then. It's quite an easy sound to make. Obviously, if I had a little bit more time, I could fine tune it and play around with it a little bit more. And what's cool is if you don't like this kind of type, if you like this type of sound but you don't like the way it sounds, you can just fiddle around with the waves. Like I could have chosen a square wave instead of saw wave, so I go to basic shapes and put in square wave. Don't know what it's going to sound like. Let's just have a listen. Sounds pretty cool. It's your choice. What sounds better to you? Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. And if you want to know how I did the chords, the video should be coming up anytime soon on the screen.